Right now, musculoskeletal care pathways are choking on indecision, trapping both patients and clinicians in endless loops of appointments. Shared decision-making, or SDM, is a strict national priority for the NHS, but implementing it successfully in routine, everyday MSK consultations remains rare. In reality, patients frequently walk into their first appointment completely uncertain about what is actually wrong with their joint, let alone what their treatment options are. We call this decisional conflict. It's the state of confusion and uncertainty that prevents a patient from committing to a clear, definitive treatment plan. When decisional conflict is unresolved, it triggers a negative feedback loop in the clinical pathway. Unable to choose, patients are forced into multiple wait-and-see appointments, clogging the schedule. Frustrated, they eventually default to invasive surgery, without fully understanding what that entails.
Unchecked decisional conflict directly fuels wasted clinical capacity and bloated elective waitlists. The standard NHS response to all this indecision is usually pretty simple. Hand the patient a free, generic decision aid to read at home. But while the intention is good, the reality is that these pamphlets provide information without offering a way to structure a decision. This creates significant cognitive burden. Throwing unfiltered medical options at patients sitting alone in their living room doesn't clarify things, it overwhelms them. For clinicians, these free decision aids require zero workflow disruption to hand out, but that zero friction input yields zero actual behavioral impact. Separated from active clinical guidance, patients simply return for their next appointment just as confused, and the status quo continues. Passive information delivery lacks the structure required to actively manage decision quality. Handing out a leaflet alone cannot fix a broken pathway flow. This is why Torbay charts were developed. It's an alternative framework designed to actively structure that 22-minute clinical encounter. To use it, you have to abandon the passive handout model. Clinicians intentionally adapt their conversation style, working through a visual, consultation-integrated map alongside the patient. Let's compare free decision aids against Torbay charts. First, timing. Generic aids are used outside, while Torbay integrates into real-time conversation. Next, clinical relevance. Torbay aligns specific treatments to exact disease stages. Finally, outcomes. Torbay charts actively alter the treatment decisions patients make. There is an operational trade-off here. Gaining this level of clarity requires the clinician to actively use the tool to guide the conversation, rather than falling back on unstructured dialogue. But by integrating the tool directly into the consultation workflow, shared decision-making moves from a tick-box compliance exercise to a powerful clinical intervention. To evaluate the impact of this framework, we can look at data involving 216 patients across 5 different healthcare settings. Looking at this chart, you can see the impact on pre-consultation uncertainty. We saw a 92% resolution rate, where 25 undecided patients dropped to just 2 in a single visit. When you move a patient away from a binary surgery versus nothing mindset and present them with 18 or 19 granular, stage-appropriate options, their behavior changes. We saw exactly this shift in the data. Of the patients who arrived expecting surgery, 33.9% chose non-operative management after seeing their structured options. Now, a common clinical concern is that patients might simply be picking inappropriate treatments just to avoid the theater. To check that, we use the Oxford Score Correlation, an objective metric of joint disease severity and functional limitation. The evaluation mapped each patient's ultimate treatment choice directly against their objective clinical severity on the scatter plot. The result is a strong statistical correlation of -0.83. This proves that only those with the greatest functional limitation were choosing surgery. Furthermore, in the latest cohort, 0 patients moved from a non-operative preference to surgery, halting unwarranted clinical escalation. Structured decision support ensures clinical validity, confirming that patients will choose less invasive care when they understand their disease stage and the options available. If we step out of the consultation room and look at the wider hospital system, the implications for NHS commissioners are clear. This aligns with GIRFT, getting it right first time. By ensuring precise decision-making at the beginning, we eliminate the waste generated by indecision downstream. We see this in financial modeling. With an 8.8% shift away from surgery, a pathway of 2,000 patients yields over £1.66 million in cost avoidance. Even applying a conservative 2% shift model, the system sees nearly £400,000 avoided. And keep in mind, these models only calculate the direct procedural costs at £9,460 per joint. The actual system savings are higher.
plus unquantified operational benefits, released theater capacity, eliminated follow-up appointments, and a time-neutral 22-minute footprint. The administrative cost of training staff is offset by the cost avoidance generated for elective recovery. For system commissioners and pathway managers, if reducing procedural costs and hitting elective recovery targets is the priority, this framework offers a validated path forward. For MSK clinicians, if your goal is to practice evidence-based medicine and stop seeing patients return in indecision, this tool provides the structure you need. However, if a system is merely looking for a passive tool to superficially claim SDM compliance, they should stick to the free decision aids. Instead, Torbay charts demand actual clinical engagement. That is the trade-off. You are exchanging the low friction of passive information handouts for the value of active, structured consultation maps. Improving decision quality at the very first point of care is a practical, scalable way to protect limited NHS resources.